Hello everyone and welcome back to Beatles Beatles channel. Lovely to have you here. Thanks for joining me for this video and I hope you're all doing well. In today's video I'm going to be doing episode 15 of my deep dive review series. This is where I take either a Beatles album or a Beatles solo album and do a fairly thorough review of the album. And the album that we're looking at today is McCartney II from 1980. Now, if you watch this channel for any amount of time, then you probably already know the format of how I do these reviews. But if you are new to the channel or you haven't seen any of these deep dive review videos before, I'll tell you what's going to happen. So I'm going to be, first of all, I'm going to show you the album, my original copy of the album. And I'm going to be giving the album some context about how it was created and what was going on at the time when it got created. I'm going to be talking about every track on the album, and I'm going to be scoring every track on the album out of 10. I will then add up the total score for the album and divide it by the number of tracks on the album. In this case, 11, to get an average score for the album. It sounds overly complicated, but it's not really that complicated. There is a method in the madness, because what I'm trying to do is create a great big league table of all the Beatles albums and all the solo albums and see how they stack against each other. Are any solo albums better than Beatles albums or vice versa, whatever. That's what we're trying to find out, and that's why we use an average score. Now I know this isn't a perfect method to rank these albums. I realise that, but it's the best I've come up with so far. Now I've started with this kind of method, I've kind of got to carry on with it, because it's not fair. It wouldn't be fair to the albums that I've already done the deep dive reviews on. So that is basically what I'm going to be doing. Now, I've created this table. I call it Beatletone's Great Big Album Review Ranking Table. And as I say, I've done 14 albums so far, and at the moment it looks like this. So Imagine is at the top of the league table at the moment. By the time we get to the end of this video, we'll know where McCartney II sits on that league table. So that is what we're going to do in today's video. Now, before I get onto that, I just want to say great big Beatles welcome to all the new subscribers. Thank you so much for subscribing to the channel. Do really appreciate it, and I hope you enjoy the content here. While I'm here, I might as well mention that if you're seeing this channel for the first time and you're not subscribed, please consider supporting the channel by subscribing. Love to have you along for the ride. And if you haven't seen this channel before, and you manage to get to the end of this video, you will notice that at the end of this video, which will probably be about 30 minutes long, you'd have got from the start to finish without seeing any adverts whatsoever during the video. No adverts for pet insurance, no adverts for foot spas, no adverts for pensions or any of that nonsense. That is because I don't allow adverts mid-roll on my video, so you can watch the whole thing from start to finish without being interrupted by that nonsense. Okay, so shall we get on with it? We'll start off by showing the album. And whenever I do these videos, I like to show my original copy of the album, and this is it. This I bought on day it came out in May 1980. That is the track listing there on the back, and this is the gatefold. A very nice picture taken by Linda. Their very sort of serene picture of Paul with the rainbow there. This is the inner sleeve with the lyrics on it. And that is the picture on the other side of the sleeve, the inner sleeve. We'll just have a quick look at the vinyl. So this is a UK first pressing, and it's on the 2 EMI box Parlor phone label, and that is side 2. So there you go. Right, okay. Now, when I do these deep dive reviews, as I say, I like to show my original album. You know, I've got lots of copies of McCartney II. You know, since I bought that, there always seems to be a reason to buy another copy, whether it be the archive collection or the deluxe box set or coloured vinyl, whatever reason. But I did play this album before I sat down to do this review. I played both this original copy, which is of course an analog recording, and I did play the archive edition as well. And you know what, the original album still sounds really good, probably the better of the two, I would say. Now, but because we have had newer things, it's not that often that I go back to the original album. The reason why I like to go back to the original album is because it just takes me back. It just takes me back to the time when I heard this album for the first time, and kind of think about myself, sitting on my bed, at home, listening to this album in my bedroom. But because I haven't been here very often, I'd forgotten that there was something else in this album that isn't part of the packaging. And if you've seen, you've probably heard me talking about this before, that when I first started work at 16, I was too young. I was too young to go to the pub with the people that I worked with. So I used to hang out in a record store, which was right near where I worked. And I got friendly with the bloke who ran the record store, and he used to give me promotional posters and spare record sleeves and stuff like that when they had finished doing their promotion for any album. And I'd completely forgotten that this was tucked inside my album. Which I think I'll show you. It's a great big promotional poster for McCartney II, which is there, and you can probably still see. Look, you can still see bits of sellotape on it there for where it was, hanging up in my bedroom wall. And when I went into the album, I was really surprised to find it, really glad to find it. I think I really need to put it up on this wall now, I think. So just showing nothing has changed since I was 18 or 19. I'm still putting posters up on my wall. Okay, let's get on with the review. Okay, let's try and put McCartney II into context. And to do that, we need to go back to June 1979. Back to the Egg comes out. It is poorly received by critics, not without some justification, but reviews were probably overly harsh. Sales are not as good as earlier Wings albums, and Paul is hurt by this, and he's listening to the critics. Now, the music scene is starting to shift. It's starting to shift away from guitar-based rock or new wave or punk or whatever it is, and moving towards electronic music. Now, in the UK in 1979, a massive hit for Gary Numan's band Tubeway Army with Our Friends Electric. But we can even go back as far as 1977 and look at David Bowie, who is always ahead of the game. He goes to Berlin and he creates albums like Low and Heroes, and later Lodger and his 1980 album Scary Monsters to Super Creeps, which all have these sort of electronic soundscapes on them. What does Paul do? He goes down to his studio in July 1979, his studio down at Lowergate Farm in Peasmarsh, and he orders in the latest equipment, new synthesizers, sequencers, a 16-track Studer machine, a whole bunch of microphones, and he starts experimenting with this stuff. Now, this isn't the first time that Paul has kind of moved away from a guitar-based rock. You can go back as far as With a Little Luck. There's no guitars on that song. It's all keyboard instruments and bass and drums, but no guitars. But Paul is down there. He's got all this new equipment. He wants to find out how it works, what he can do with it. So he's creating all these maybe sketches or doodles or songs using this equipment, trying to basically find out what all this new stuff can do. So as I said, in July he's recording at Peasmarsh. In August 1979 he moves up to Scotland to his Lower Ranachan studio in Campbelltown and continues to record. Later he will go to Abbey Road Studio 3 and do the overdubs, but he plays some of the stuff that he's created, this experimental stuff, to friends, and they say, well, is this your new album? And Paul has to concede, well, yeah, perhaps it is. And he makes a point of saying that's kind of where the fun stopped, because before he was just like messing about with all this equipment. Now he's thinking about this as being an album, and he's got to tidy it up. He records about 20 songs during this period using all this equipment. But what about Wings? What is happening with Wings? Well, we know that towards the end of 1979, Wings, rehearsed for a UK tour. They play 17 dates in the UK, plus the concert for Kampuchea. And at the beginning of January, or the 16th of January, they go to Japan to start the Japanese leg of the tour. Paul gets busted. He spends 9 days in a Japanese prison, sitting in the bath with murderers and rapists singing Yesterday to them, and eventually, after 9 days he gets out. But as far as Wings goes, at this particular time, we had no idea that Wings was over as a band. There wasn't any clue. Even when the album came out in May 1980, we still didn't know that it was the end of Wings. There was no announcement until 1981, and when McCartney II came out, we just assumed it was the next. It was the follow-up to the first McCartney album, where he writes everything, he plays everything, and he produces, and it's just another episode in what would eventually be a trilogy. But as far as we're concerned, Wings is still a thing. And the story of how Wings ends is never ever clear. It's never ever clear. But I just want to read something from the Archive Deluxe edition, the book that comes with the Archive Deluxe edition. This is an interview that he did in 2011 when this came out. He did this interview specifically for the Archive release, and to me, this doesn't ring true to me. What he says is, I think the Japanese episode, as we can call it, was the end of Wings. It's very strange, actually, that period for me, because I didn't want to go to Japan with this band. I felt very unrehearsed, and I don't like that feeling. I will normally rehearse, so I feel like we've got a great show. Then I'm happy to go. But we were booked, and we were going to rehearse in Tokyo, and I thought, oh, a bit last minute. So I was panicking about it all, and suddenly I get busted, and I don't know, it just feels like a very strange thing. It's almost like I got myself busted to get out of it. And he goes on, anyway, the upshot of it was, we got there, I got busted, and I really thought, nah, this band isn't going to work. I'm not happy with it. We weren't rehearsed. Why weren't we rehearsed? Well, this is nonsense. We know this is nonsense because, like I said, they've just done a 17 date tour of the UK plus concert for Kampuchea. They are fully up to speed. They are fully rehearsed, and they've played lots of live shows, so they've got lots of experience. They go to Japan on the 16th of January. It's only 2 weeks after the concert for Kampuchea, so they're not rehearsed at all. That is nonsense. So I don't know whether he is just forgetting what happened or he's revising history. I don't know, but that does not ring true to me as being the end of Wings at that point. He's got Lawrence Juba and Steve Holley on board, two very, very capable musicians, and people like those who are not the type to show dissent within the band, like other members of Wings, like Jimmy McCulloch, like Henry McCulloch. Denny Lane, always complaining about how much he was being paid and always wanting to go on the road. Joe English, is homesick. Jeff Britton, no one in the band gets on with him. And, these are two two people, very competent musicians, who aren't going to cause a problem. They're happy to be in the band. They're very happy to be in the band. And isn't that what Paul was striving for all the way through Wings, to find, competent musicians that were, not going to cause too much of a fuss? So it just all seems very strange. So the first product to come out from these sessions is the Wonderful Christmas Time single that is released under the name Paul McCartney, not under Wings. Wings played it on every day on their UK tour, apart from the concert for Campercheer, which happened after Christmas, so it probably wasn't appropriate. But this synthesizer-based song gave us a clue of what Paul was up to. But it asks the question, why has it come out under the name Paul McCartney rather than Wings, especially as Wings played it on the tour? The next song that we heard from the album was the single Coming Up, the lead-off single from the album. This came out in April 1980, so about a month before the album. And the version here is an edit. It's an edit down to about 3.5 minutes, which is the same as what is on the album. But there was a full version of the song that lasts about 5.5 minutes, and you can find that on the McCartney II archive edition as bonus material. But this song, this is my original single, so that is the Coming Up is the A side in the UK. And on the B-side, we've got a live version of Coming Up from that tour, recorded at the Glasgow Apollo on the 15th of December 1979, and also a bonus track, Lunchbox Odd Socks, which was an outtake from the Venus and Mars sessions. Now, in the UK, this got to number 2. In America, it got to number 1. But the A-side of the single in America was the live version from the Glasgow Apollo. Now, the track itself, very catchy song, as I say, big hit, number 2 in the UK, number 1 in America. And Paul on this, he plays... obviously plays everything, but he plays drums, he plays a rhythm box, he adds bass, guitar, hand claps, tambourines, and he creates 4 synthesizer tracks, one to simulate an electric piano and the other 3 to simulate the horns, saxophones and trumpet. And those synthesizer parts were recorded at half speed and then sped up on the recorded at half speed because it was easier to play that way. But that wasn't the only thing that was sped up. Paul's vocal is also sped up here, and although I do like Coming Up as a track, I just don't think that the version on this album is the best version that we've had. I prefer the live version where his voice is totally natural. He's using a live horn section rather than synthesizers and stuff like that. Obviously, we know that he created this fantastic video for this song where he plays all these different parts himself. He dresses up as Beatles Paul with his collarless jacket, and he's got his Hofner bass, which was the first time that we'd seen that bass for quite some time. He dresses up as Ron Mayle out of Sparks, Buddy Holly, Hank Marvin, etc, etc. Fantastic video, and I say it was a big hit, and it's a great track, but I just don't think this is the best version. So I prefer the live version on the B-side, but I think the best version of Coming Up is on the live album, Tripping the Live Fantastic from 1990. But it is a great song, and I can't really give it less than 8 out of 10. So track 2 is Temporary Secretary. Now, I know that a lot of people find this track really annoying with its relentless keyboard riff that goes throughout the song, but I don't. I find it quite an original piece, departure for Paul. Now, that keyboard riff that goes all the way through the song is played on a sequencer, which is not particularly new technology. Pete Townsend used a sequencer for the keyboard part on Barbara O'Reilly back in 1971 on the Who's Next album, so not particularly new, but it does create a really nice sound on this record for me. Now, the lyrics on this song are a little bit silly, I have to admit. And, it didn't occur to me back then in 1980 that people outside of London that were hearing this song would not have a clue who Mr. Marks was. Mr. Marks that comes from the Alfred Marks Employment Agency, which was a big employment agency in London in the 70s and 80s, where employers would go to get a secretary or a temporary secretary if their regular secretary was on holiday or having a baby or whatever. But you know, I don't think it was that they were very well known outside of London, but in London, you know, they were advertised very heavily on TV and also in cinemas at the time. Now, the little bit in the middle, she could be a belly dancer, that bit of lyric, Paul has said that was influenced by Ian Dury and the sort of stuff that he was doing with the Blockheads around, you know, 1977 to 79, that sort of thing. That's where that comes from. What is really annoying about this song is the bit on the coda right at the end, where there's this squawking noise, which sounds like someone is treading on a cat's paw, and once you've heard it, you can't unhear it, and I find it really annoying. So I could really do without that. Temporary Secretary was released as a single, but only on a 12-inch. It came out in September 1980. Only 25,000 copies were pressed of this, and it sold out in 16 hours. So quite difficult to find these days, but you can find them on eBay and for around about 50 quid, something like that. The B-side of this was Secret Friend, which also comes from the Sessions, which is an experimental piece. It lasts 10.5 minutes, which, if you ask me, is about 7.5 minutes too long. I could probably do with that being shortened. If you want to hear that, the full version of this is on the deluxe McCartney II archive collection as bonus material. Now, the interesting thing about Temporary Secretary is that around sort of 2014, 2015, club DJs started picking up on this song from way back in 1980. They discovered this song, started playing in clubs, and it sort of became a club hit, which kind of forced Paul's hand in 2015. He started playing it live, which was amazing. I saw him play it live in 2015. I saw him play it live in 2017, and he even played it during the sound check when I saw him in December last year, which was great to hear. So great to hear Temporary Secretary getting a new lease of life and being played live by Paul. As I say, I know it's annoying for some people, but not for me, apart from that squawking. So I do quite like the song, and I'm going to give this 8 out of 10 as well. Track 3 is On the Way, and there's absolutely nothing on this track that stinks of the 1980s. It's a straightforward blues song, bass, guitar, drums and vocals. That's it. No studio trickery here, apart from the vocal is absolutely drenched in reverb. I absolutely love this track. It is my favourite song on the album. The bass playing is lovely on this, and the guitar solos are superb. There's no less than 3 solos, one played on its own and 2 played underneath of vocal. Paul sounds great on this track. So this is a track I have never ever got bored of. It is my favourite track on the album, and I'm giving it 9 out of 10. So track 4 is the mournful ballad Waterfalls, and this is a kind of a mature song. What the message in this song is, don't go doing stupid things because I need you here. But again, with this song, I don't really hear a big shout from fans, people saying, oh, this is one of McCartney's best ever ballads, because I don't think it is. It feels a little bit unfinished here to me. It's basically just Paul on an electric piano with vocals. There are synthesizer parts on this that kind of create a bit of an orchestra, but quite low in the mix, so they're more in the background than to the fore, and it just has this kind of unfinished feel to me. I think that this could have been developed a little bit more. It would have been a much better song. Paul did arrange for a score to be written to have like real strings on it and flutes and French horns and all that sort of caper, but he never used it. It was released as a single in June 1980. It got to number 9 in the UK, didn't chart in America. The B-side of this is Check My Machine, which is a really interesting experimental track. It lasts about 6 minutes on the single, but if you've got the McCartney II archive collection, the bonus audio on that, about a 9-minute version, it's got a great bass line, really enjoyable song. But Waterfalls, not so much. I'm not really sure what it is about this song that just doesn't really do it for me. I just think it just sounds a bit like a demo, and I think if with a bit of development it could have been a better song, so I'm just going to give it 7.5 out of 10. So the final track on side 1 is Nobody Knows, and again, like On the Way, there's nothing 80s about this. This is pretty much a straightforward rock and roll song. In fact, it's even got that sort of very famous rock and roll bass line on it that goes do 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 do, except it's slowed down. It's slowed down. The way that he plays it, it's slowed down. So do 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 do. Have a listen for it. But as I say, this song doesn't pull up any trees. There's nothing original about it or innovative about it. It's just a straightforward rock and roll song. It's just guitar, bass, drums and vocals. Paul's going 4 to the floor on the kick drum on this, and that is mixed quite highly in the mix. And I say it's pretty much nonsense lyrics, and it doesn't pull up any trees, but I do like it, and I'm going to give this one 7.5 out of 10 as well. So side 1 of the album has fared quite favourably, but flip the record over and the album is about to take a very sharp downward turn. The opening track on side 2 is an instrumental called Front Parlor. What an uninspiring title for a song. It doesn't encourage you to want to listen to a song called Front Parlor. You might as well have called it Spare Bedroom. And this is a very dull song. It's just synthesizer, moog and drums. There are no vocals in this at all. And it's quite horrible, to be honest. This song, what it reminds me of? When I used to play Super Mario with my kids, it's that music that goes on in the background. That's what it sounds like to me. It's a horrible song. It's 2 out of 10 for that, and I'm being generous. The next track is Summer's Day Song. Now, back in the day when I first heard this album, I couldn't stand this track either. It seemed to drag on and on and on without going anywhere. But these days I've mellowed and understand that this is a kind of semi-classical piece, if you like. There aren't many vocals. There's just one verse that gets repeated twice, and but the instrumentation in between is quite beautiful. Paul plays about 8 different synthesizer parts to represent various classical instruments, and also a mellotron as well, which is set on the flute setting, the same setting as on Strawberry Fields Forever. We hear that sort of flute sound in the song. But as I say, these days I've mellowed to this song, and will confess it is a beautiful piece of music. It still doesn't go anywhere really for me. It's still a bit overly long, and I'm going to give this one 6 out of 10. So track 3 on side 2 is another instrumental called Frozen Japanese, as it was known later in Japan. And again, this does absolutely nothing for me. It goes on and on and on, and the idea behind the song was to maybe create the imagery of a snow-peaked Mount Fuji, and I'm not sure whether it achieves that image, but the music in the song does sound like traditional Japanese music. That's for sure. But the song is very, very repetitive. It goes on way too long for me. It doesn't really change much, apart from in the middle where where it kind of breaks down and you kind of get a little drum interlude, and the drums on this are actually really good. I do really like the drums on it, but the rest of the song just doesn't do anything for me. It's kind of a little bit too self-indulgent. I think maybe a minute and a half of this would have probably have been enough and achieved what it set out to do. It's interesting to think whether this song was kind of called Frozen Jap as a kind of a little bit of rebellion about the bust in Japan at the start of 1980, but this song was recorded well before that happened. It was recorded, you know, in July or August of 1979. So, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't a little dig. You know, you could have changed the title because it's an instrumental. An instrumental could be called anything, can't it? Because it's got no words, so they can call an instrumental what they like. So, you know, the jury's out on this one, but you know, it's not a favourite song of mine, and I can give it 4 out of 10 absolute tops. So the next track is called Bogey Music, and this is inspired by the book Fungus and the Bogeymen. But here in the UK, it's impossible to think of the word bogey without thinking about the contents of your nostrils, which makes it a little bit of a comedy song as far as we're concerned here in the UK. Well, as far as I'm concerned anyway. But I do really like this song. It is just a bit of fun, and it's nonsense lyrics. And this is not a typical 80s piece of music. This is again going back to rock and roll. Paul sings this in a cod Elvis voice. There's a fantastic drum groove to this that I really like. But the highlight for me of this song is Paul's bass playing in this. It's got an absolutely wonderful walking bass line that sometimes you just hear as part of the rhythm section, but sometimes when instruments drop out, you just hear it on its own, like a kind of a mini bass solo. I think that, you know, this is just a bit of fun. Paul says in the lyrics, you know, without bogey music, life is incomplete. I'm not sure if that's really true. What do you think? Is your life complete without bogey music, or do you have bogey music in your life? I don't know, but this is a fun song. I do really like it, and I'm going to give this 7.5 out of 10. So the penultimate track is called Dark Room, and this is an experimental piece, and like all experimental tracks, some of them work and some of them don't, but for me this one really does work. It's called Dark Room, and it is a very dark track. I think very atmospheric, borderline creepy, if you ask me. And Paul employs all sorts of different silly voices on this. He sings it mostly in a falsetto voice, and he plays bass, drums, guitar, synthesizer, maracas on this. The song has got a really nice feel. About halfway through the song, the song kind of speeds up. It moves to sort of double time. It builds momentum as it goes on, and but this really does work for me. The bass playing on this is really good as well, and the song doesn't hang around for too long. It clocks in at about 2 minutes 20. There is another version on the archive collection that as a bonus audio that is almost double in length, but this one doesn't mess about. It, as I say, clocks in at 2:20. It does its stuff, and then it gets off. This is a really underrated Paul McCartney track for me, one of my favourites on the album. I want to give it 8 out of 10. So we've arrived at the final song on the album, and again, this is not an experimental 80s run through. This is just an acoustic ballad. It's just Paul with acoustic guitar doing what Paul does with an acoustic guitar. A beautiful ballad. And this song, I'm wondering whether this is the first song of this type where Paul is maybe considering his older age. He is only 37 when he writes this song, but he's writing, one of these days when we both are at our ease and we've got time to please ourselves. So he's kind of looking forward to this time, maybe when he's retired or something like that, and we're still waiting for that day. But it's an interesting song from that point of view. Is this a top class McCartney ballad? I'm not sure. I think this probably falls a little bit short of top tier McCartney ballads, but it is a really good song. He's mostly strumming his acoustic guitar throughout this song, but he is picking at the strings during the middle 8-bit, the it's there, it's round, it's to be found parts. Really good song. Really like this song. It's my second favourite from the album, and I'm giving it 8.5 out of 10. So summing up, McCartney II is a bit of a mixed bag. It's kind of lauded as this brave experimental piece from 1980, but you know, as I've gone through these songs and revisited them again, I think it's the songs that aren't particularly experimental that work best for me. Temporary Secretary and Dark Room aside, I think all the other songs aren't particularly experimental, or the ones that I like anyway, and the ones that are experimental, like Front Parlor and Frozen Jap and Summer Day Song, the ones that I'm not really that keen on. So that is my overall thoughts on the album. Please tell me yours down in the comments. Did I get the scoring right? Did I get it wrong? Please tell me down in the comments. So let's have a look at the scores that we got. So the total for the album was 76 points. There are 11 tracks on the album, so that gives it an average score of 6.91. So we're going to plonk that now into Beatly Tone's great big album review ranking table, see where it comes, and it comes in at number 12. This will change over time as more albums get reviewed and added to the table. Little bit of housekeeping before I go. Please remember to give the video a like, because it really does help the channel, helps this video get out to more people. So please take a second of your life just to give it a like. That would be really appreciated and help me out a bit, so thanks very much if you're doing that. While we're still talking about McCartney II, I have done a deep dive on the Archive Edition Deluxe box set, where you will see every page of this book. I talk about all the bonus material that's on it, both audio and video. So if you want to check that out, if you haven't checked that out, and you want to have a look at that, there'll be an end card at the end of this video that you can just click on and watch it. Okay, that is it for me. Please tell me what you think about McCartney II down in the comments. You know, I do read all your comments and I will respond to all your comments. Apart from that, thanks very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all very soon. Bye bye.